Here's an update to the Sandra Birchmore case that you won't believe it. Remember, the last man to see this woman alive is former police detective Matthew Farwell. He's with the Stoughton Police Department. That's in Massachusetts. That's him in the footage on February 1st, 2021. 30 minutes later, he leaves, and Sandra Birchmore, who was pregnant at the time, is found dead days later. Now, Birchmore at the time was allegedly pregnant with Farwell's baby, and co-workers claim that Farwell was threatening Birchmore to get rid of the baby, and that if she didn't, he would take care of it himself. Now, why would Farwell, a police detective, threaten Birchmore? Well, because he had a family. And at the time of this night, his wife was in labor in a hospital 2 hours away. Crazy, huh? Oh, and one more thing. At the time of her death, she was 23 years old. Farwell has been raping her since she was 15 years old, when he was 26. Farwell admits that he and Birchmore had a fight on this very day. And when he leaves her apartment, he deletes all communication with her on his cell phone. So with all that evidence, what's the cause of death? Suicide. Of course. Police are saying that Birchmore took something like a small rope or a lanyard, put it around her neck, tied it to here, and choked herself to death. Yeah, more on that in a minute. But before I update you with new information, let me catch some of you up, just in case you didn't see my first video, well, because the story gets crazier.
Those investigators also determined that Birchmore had been having inappropriate relations with 3 Stoughton police officers. Now, according to the report, one of those officers had known Birchmore since she was 13 years of age and began a relationship with her at age 15.
Matthew Farwell, his twin brother William Farwell, and Robert Devine.
These men knew who they were dealing with, an innocent girl who was just looking for love and attention. And she didn't have an appropriate male figure in her life because her father wasn't in her life. So these guys became that, but they groomed her and they used that to their advantage.
But Matthew Farwell is the last person to see her alive, and that's who we're focusing on. Now, for those of you that are new to the case, you're pretty much caught up, but if you want to go watch my first video, there's some more details there. Now, there are 2 investigations to keep in mind here. One, the death of Sandra Birchmore. That was conducted by the Canton Police Department and continued on by the Massachusetts State Police. And then investigation number 2 that revealed the inappropriate relationships with these officers and Sandra Birchmore. That was conducted by the Stoughton Police Department. Let's focus on investigation number 1, the death of Sandra Birchmore. So I reached out to the Canton Police Department and gotten reports from that day when they found Sandra Birchmore. And they describe an interesting scene inside of her apartment. A detective and a deputy described the scene as messy and the apartment was not kept clean. They found Birchmore inside of her bedroom. The bedroom door was also closed. When they walked in, this is what they saw. Now, this is the police report, and I'm going to read word for word what it says, what officers found when they walked into Birchmore's bedroom. Birchmore was located in the bedroom in a seated position on the floor, like I am, with dark-colored strap around her neck. The strap was tied to the door handle of the bedroom closet. There's no signs of defensive abrasions. The bedroom along with the apartment was unorganized and unkept. There were no signs of a struggle. So, police are saying that Birchmore took something like a lanyard. That's what's described in the other police report. Or maybe a rope. So this is a lanyard. They're saying she put this around her neck, tied it to here, and then sat down. Yeah. Now, I'm friends with many law enforcement officers. Many of them are high-ranking officers, and I've asked them, is this type of suicide common? Many of them said no. Matter of fact, most of them said they've never seen a suicide like this. So let me ask you this, what's more feasible? A man that is much larger than his victim, overpowering her and using something like this to take her life, and then using her as expertise like being a police detective to stage a scene and tied to here? Or did Sandra Birchmore, a expectant mother, take this, put it around her neck, put it here, and then sit down? And keep in mind, the report says that there was no signs of struggle, yet the place was dirty and not kept clean. It was very messy. Well, let's go to my daughter's room. Let's take a look at her bedroom. It's a mess. Now, let me sit next to her closet door and claim that they put something around my neck, tied it here. Now, if I were to kick around in a messy room, how can you tell the difference between a messy house and struggling? And if that's not enough for you, it's Massachusetts in the middle of February, and it had been snowing. Police found Birchmore's car outside of her apartment, and they noted that the snow on it had not been disturbed, which means her car had not been moved. Police also reported the last time it had snowed, you guessed it, the same night that Matthew Farwell came to Birchmore's apartment. Police also talked to a maintenance supervisor who was familiar with everyone inside of the building. When they pulled surveillance footage, they watched it with the supervisor. In the footage, he recognizes everyone except for one person. Keep this in mind. Farwell, at this very time, his wife was giving birth to their child a few hours away in a hospital, made a special trip to Birchmore's apartment. And look at this. There are many redactions, like on the kitchen counter, the apartment in plain view, and then nothing. The rest of number 5 and number 6 are completely gone. Now to investigation number 2. Remember, this is the investigation that revealed the inappropriate relationships with Farwell and Sandra Birchmore and the other 2 officers.
The 3 officers are accused of having had inappropriate and physical relationships with Birchmore when she was a minor. Birchmore's family accused the officers of grooming her and repeated sexual assaults that later led to her death.
Through a sustained and deliberate combination of lies, deceit, and treachery, they violated the policies and the core values of the Stoughton Police Department.
A year after Sandra's death, Stoughton Police requested an interview with Farwell in February of 2022. Farwell chose to resign from his position, and through his attorney, told the Stoughton Police Department that he would not cooperate. Now, here's an interesting part to this investigation. Remember Robert Devine? Devine was in contact with Birchmore, and the last time he spoke with her? February 1st, 2021 via Facebook Messenger. This is the same day Matthew Farwell made that special visit to Birchmore's apartment, and she was found dead a few days later. The details of that conversation, again, redacted.
All 3 men, the Farwell brothers and Devine, violated their oaths of office and should never have the privilege of serving any community as a police officer.
all three officers, Matthew Farwell, his brother William Farwell, and Robert Devine, they have since left the force. They have resigned. They are not facing any charges at this point, and they did not respond to our request today for comment. The district attorney's office in Norfolk County says it has found no evidence of a crime.
Here's my issue with this case. Sandra Birchmore's death has never been considered a murder, and Matthew Farwell has never been investigated as a possible suspect. But even with that, why isn't more being done about the statutory rape of Sandra Birchmore? According to my research, there is no statute of limitations on statutory rape in the state of Massachusetts. Sandra Birchmore deserves answers. She was abused by this system at the age of 15, and she continues to be abused long after her death and long after the death of her unborn child. She deserves justice.